Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to jump into a really powerful idea from a fascinating spiritual text. This whole concept of not just passively waiting for divine communication, but actually, actively inviting it into our lives.
So let's just start with a question. Have you ever found yourself just wishing for a clearer sign? A more direct answer, or maybe just a better sense of direction in your life? I think it's a feeling that probably hits home for a lot of us at some point.
Well, what's so interesting is that the source material we're digging into today suggests a total shift in perspective. It lays out this framework for moving our spiritual life from what can feel like a one-way street, where we do all of the talking, into a real, genuine dialogue. So let's break down how that works. All right, first things first, we have to get our heads around the central idea here. The source calls this a kind of sacred invitation, a way of respectfully prompting a response from God. So the term they use is divine provocation. Now, I know that might sound a little intense, right? But it's not about being demanding or trying to force God's hand. It's more like setting the stage. It's about creating an environment of readiness, an attitude of receptivity that respectfully invites God to speak into our lives. So how does this idea actually play out in real life? Well, we can see it in action all over the place in some pretty well-known biblical stories. Let's kick things off with a classic example, King Solomon. You've probably heard the story. God appears to Solomon in a dream and basically says, ask for whatever you want, a blank check. And Solomon doesn't ask for money or a long life. Instead, he asks for wisdom to lead his people well. His entire request was focused on serving others, and the text says that selfless motive is what pleased the Lord and provoked such a powerful response. And right there in that story, you see this simple but really profound pattern. It starts with a selfless request, a heart that's for other people. This pleases God, which then leads to a response that doesn't just grant the request, but goes way beyond it. I mean, Solomon asked for wisdom, and he got it, but he was also given riches and honor on top of it. And this is really the crucial point. This isn't about learning some magic prayer technique. It's much deeper than that. It's really about cultivating a specific kind of character, a heart that is positioned and ready to listen. So the source boils these character traits down to a few core qualities. We're talking about a servant heart, putting others first, self-surrender, which is all about getting past our own selfish desires, unconditional love, pure motives. It's all about shifting the focus away from me and toward we, and ultimately toward a much higher purpose. And if you need another perfect example of this whole character over title idea, look no further than the story of Joseph. I mean, his entire life is a masterclass in how our inner posture, not some official job title, is what really opens the door to divine communication. See, Joseph was never called a prophet in the formal sense. He wasn't going around making big declarations. But what he did have was humility, a servant's heart, and even just really practical management skills. All of that made him the perfect vessel. God used his character to put him in a position to interpret Pharaoh's dreams, which ended up saving an entire nation from starvation. So this all brings up a really key question, right? If this is all about our character and where our heart is focused, then where exactly should we be listening for God's voice? Where does this communication actually take place? Well, what the source material suggests is that God often meets us right where we already are. Just like he met Solomon in his role as a king and Joseph in his role as an administrator, he speaks into our areas of passion, our places of service, and our prayers for other people. It's about being attentive right in the middle of our everyday lives. And this is so, so important to remember. The message isn't always going to be some booming voice from the heavens. As the book of Job reminds us, God's communication can be subtle. Think about it. Joseph didn't understand what his own dreams meant for years. It often takes time and a lot of perspective to finally perceive what's being communicated. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, but how do we actually do it? How do we apply this? Well, the source offers a very clear, actionable method to start cultivating this receptive posture in our own lives. Here are 4 practical steps. First, you intentionally pick 2 people who you know are going through a really hard time. Second, you start praying for them consistently, and here's the catch, you do it in secret. The goal isn't to get any credit. Third, you move from prayer to action and find real, practical ways to serve them. And fourth, you spend time meditating on stories like Solomon's and Joseph's to keep your heart aligned with this whole model. So, if you were to boil this entire framework down to one single core principle, this would be it. The journey to hearing God's voice more clearly, it doesn't start with us trying to get something for ourselves. It actually begins with a genuine heart for carrying the burdens of other people. That selfless love and service, that's what creates the spiritual receptivity we're talking about. And that really just leaves us with a final, very practical thought. This isn't just some abstract spiritual concept. It's a call to action. So the question to reflect on as we wrap up is a simple one. Whose burden can you help carry starting today?